Continuing Tractate Chullin, they are holding in the 7th chapter. The name of the chapter is Gid Hanasheh, and holding on page page 100, A1. The Gemara answers, Bir Yashani, the entire creation is different, it is deemed significant, and is not subject to nullification. Gid Hanasheh, it says in number 1, the Gid Hanasheh is an entire creation unto itself. This makes it significant, and under rabbinic law, significant items are not subject to nullifications in mixtures of dry in dry, see ensuing Gemara. V'chein chasicho shel nevela, and so too regarding a slice of nevela, and so too regarding a slice of non-kosher fish, each of which was cooked together with kosher slices. If one does not recognize the prohibited slice, all the slices are prohibited. Even if the ratio, it says in number 2, even if the ratio of the prohibited slice to the permitted slices plus the other permitted ingredients in the pot is such that the prohibited slice does not impart a flavor to the permitted slices, the permitted slices themselves are still forbidden. For although the prohibited flavor that the permitted slices absorbed has become nullified, any given slice might be the prohibited slice itself.
Well, if it's not giving off tongue, what's the problem? What makes it awesome? There's no noting tongue.
Significant, it's still there, meaning you're going to eat it. Nullification, it means somewhat disintegrates into the pot. This case, slice is there. Like you have, your wife said, I put 10 slices, there is now 11 slices. And your cleaning lady said, I put the slice into the pot. I bought a shark in a fish market, and I put a piece of shark, and you can identify the slices. What do? You say it's nullified, but it's there. How can you nullify it?
Right. Any piece could be that.
That's
piece.
the rule of significance, right. That there's something there. The Gemara says, but let the prohibited slice be nullified in the majority of the permitted slices and the ingredients that were in the pot. The Gemara answers, it is fine according to the one who says that we learned in the Mishnah, any item that is commonly counted. What does it mean, commonly counted?
One slice, two slices, three
slices. Not by weight and not by
yeah. So it says in number 5, it says, this is Reish Lakish version. Slices of meat or fish are sometimes counted. Your wife says, okay, I'm going to have 10 guests, and she's counting 10 pieces of salmon in a pot. For it is common for a host to count the slices to see that there will be enough for the number of guests he has invited. So we can explain our Mishnah's ruling that the pieces of nevela and prohibited fish do not become nullified, for we can say that our Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir. You know, there's a famous rule. It says, Davor shebaminyan eino batel. Hashem says to count the Jews. Counting now the Mishkan in this week Parsha. So anything that you count is not batel. When you put a number on something, so there's a number. I know where we started. I know where the counting started. I know how much we have. I know how much we're supposed to have. So it's not nullified. You count to 10. I need to have 10 pieces. If I don't have 10 pieces, something is missing. Something is wrong. If I have 11, something is wrong. But according to the one who says that we'll learn that which is exclusively counted, what is there to say? The Gemara says in note 6, what does it mean? Es shedarko limon sheninu. This Rabbi Yochanan version. The one that says, originally we spoke about the opinion of Rish Lakish. That we learned in the Mishnah, any item that is commonly counted. And over here, we are mentioning the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Davar shedarko limonis, he says, is exclusively counted. Not commonly counted. That's really the difference between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish speaks about something that is commonly counted, and Rabbi Yochanan speaks of something that is exclusively counted. According to this version, only items that are always counted, such as certain fruits and spices, are deemed by Rabbi Meir significant and impervious to nullification. Impervious to nullification means you cannot nullify it. They are strong enough to withstand even any nullification that does not nullify it because it's significant. But items which are sometimes dished out in bulk, even though they are sometimes counted, are subject to nullification. Why then, we ended off with a question, Ma'ikal Meimah. So what is the question over here? It tells us the question, why then does our Mishnah rule that if the prohibited slice is indistinguishable, meaning you see it as part of the other pieces of fish or meat, if the prohibited slice is indistinguishable from the others, all the slices are prohibited. Since meat and fish slices are not always counted, they should be nullified in the majority of permitted slices, even according to Rabbi Meir. Since meat and fish slices are not always counted, so if they're not always counted, it means they're not significant. If they're not significant, it should be nullified. So why did we learn that they're not nullified? That's the question.
Sometimes you count them and sometimes you don't. You go get salami at the deli with Dixie, you see, hour and a half.
You could say the same thing.
Exactly. So because they're not always counted, therefore they're not significant. And if they're not significant, they should be nullified.
What about the tongue? They give the tongue?
So nullified means that there is overwhelmingly permissible ingredients that will nullify that flavor. Obviously, if it is tam, but if there is enough to nullify the flavor, then it should be nullified. But we said it doesn't make a difference. If you know that there is an extra piece there,
then you're out of luck.
Sometimes things, it depends on the value of the piece, like diamonds. Low quality diamonds are sold like in bulk, but an expensive diamond is only is only counted individually.
yeah. So in our case, when we deal with meat, you can use the same rationale when it comes to, let's say, delicacies, unique delicacies like the tongue.
Right.
The tongue, we can argue that it wouldn't be sold in bulk.
Right.
You wouldn't sell a pallet of 20 pounds of tongue. You're selling tongues individually.
Pieces.
Yeah.
Or a whole one.
A whole tongue, yeah. So the Gemara says, Shani chasicho, a slice of forbidden meat or fish is different. It is in any case deemed significant. Whether it's counted or not, it's a piece of meat, it's significant. It's a piece of fish, it's significant. Why we're considering it significant? The Gemara says, since it is fit to be served to guests. You're not going to serve them crackers, you're going to serve them a piece of fish or a piece of meat. So therefore it's something that is significant. The Gemara explains why it was necessary for the Mishnah to teach that both a Gid Hanasheh and a slice of meat or fish are not subject to nullification. Utzricha, and it was necessary for the Mishnah to teach us both cases. De'i ashmi'inan gid. Or had the Mishnah taught us only the case of the Gid Hanasheh, I would have said only a Gid Hanasheh is deemed significant. Mishum divriya hi, because it is an entire creation, right? It's the sinew, the whole sinew of Gid Hanasheh. It's bria, and therefore, if it was eaten even less than a kazais, it's a problem, or that it's not nullified. Utzricha.
But you can cook it together, the Gid Hanasheh.
If Gid Hanasheh falls into your pot, is it nullified?
It's not, but you can eat the other meat.
Oh, we learned that if you eat a whole Gid Hanasheh less than a kazais, you still abo. Why? It's less than a kazais. It said because it's bria. It's like its own creation. It's a limb by itself. It's a separate
don't
limb.
we say that there's a separate prohibition? The reason that Gid Hanasheh is asur is because asur l'achila, not necessarily like something else that's asur b'hanat.
Right.
It's the eating that makes it asur.
But the point that the point at hand is why am I distinguishing between? I might have come to think to distinguish between Gid Hanasheh and chaticho, because chaticho is a piece. It's a piece of something. This is not a piece of something. This is the whole thing.
There's something here that if I could take a minute to read that's shaykh to this, and it's talking about what something is called. It says the concept of an entity applies to an item that is complete or distinct. If an entity or part of it is crushed, it loses its status of an entity. Furthermore, an entity is defined as an item that does not have the same name when it is divided or cut. For example, Gid Hanasheh, if it's cut into pieces, is no longer called Gid Hanasheh, it's called chaticha Gid Hanasheh, a piece of the sciatic nerve. Therefore, the Gid Hanasheh is considered to be a bria, an entity. By contrast, nevela that is cut into pieces is still called nevela. For this reason, it's not considered to be an entity.
Yeah.
But what would be the difference in flavor or things like that with other nerves? I've bought meat at the store and it's not the Gid Hanasheh in there, but it's a nerve. It's like I've bitten into it before and it's I have to take it out because it's like
The other nerves. The Torah did not prohibit us to consume this specific one. The Torah said you shouldn't. Why the Torah said you shouldn't? Because of what happened with the angel. Why? You could ask, so what? So what if the angel dislocated his thigh? Therefore, we shouldn't eat it. That's what Hashem said in the Torah.
But there is no any special reason for that. Besides that the Malach fought Yaakov and he held on to his thigh and now we can eat it.
Yeah.
Is that it?
That's what the Torah says. Al ken lo yochlu b'nei Israel
Or lo mer
et
tasiba.
Gid Hanasheh.
And it doesn't say.
But from the time of Yaakov Avinu until Matan Torah was a long time. So the Torah didn't write that Gid Hanasheh is asur until Matan Torah.
No, we said it's b'nei Noach that even at that
B'nai
time they
Noach,
kept it.
They were called B'nai Noach, right?
Even
So
at that
even though it
time,
wasn't written in the Torah yet. No?
they already did it. Remember we asked the question: what comes first, the Isur of Gid Hanasheh or the kedusha of the Bechor, for example?
Right.
So we said that the Isur of Gid Hanasheh really started right after the incident with the angel.
Right.
Not it wasn't only when the Torah was given. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, the tribes kept it already there.
So we knew from that time that there was an Isser, even though the Torah wasn't given yet, it wasn't written yet in the Torah, right?
Right. The question is, so we can ask, well, so what? The angel had an incident and with Yaakov and dislocated his thigh, and then what does that has to do with us eating it? Chassidus goes into it, explains, but it's not the time or the place. Anyway, so it says, Tzricha, it was necessary, Diashmin and Gid Mishum Devriyahu, because it is an entire creation. the Gid Hanasheh, aval chasicha im Allah. But when it comes to chasicha, I would say, listen, it's not an entire creation, and therefore it should be permissible, it should be nullified. V'yashmin chasicha, and if I would just write a slice of prohibited meat or fish, I might have said that only a slice is deemed significant, because it's something that you would serve the guest. Aval Gid, but when it comes to Gid Hanasheh, it's not something that you're going to serve the guest. I would say that it is nullified. So tzricha, you need both cases. The Bais has to teach me about Gid Hanasheh, it has to teach me about chasicha, that both of them are not nullified, even though you can logically argue that they should be nullified. The Gemara cites a ruling relating to the Mishnah's case regarding a slice of non-kosher meat or fish cooked in a pot together with kosher slices. Non-kosher piece together with kosher slices. Darash Rabbi Bar Chana announced in a public lecture, Chasicha shel nevela v'shel dag tome, a slice of nevela or a non-kosher fish that was cooked in a pot together with kosher slices. Eino iseres hashetitan tam beroitu v'keife uv'chasichos, does not render the kosher contents of the pot prohibited unless the proportion is such that the prohibited slice is large enough to impart flavor into the gravy, the sediment, and the slices.
So that's
Giving flavor to everything that is in the pot.
That seems to be the opposite of what we said before, that each piece is asur. In other words, and even if it doesn't give time, it's still asur. Now it's.
No, but this is Yaakov. This is because in this case the whole thing disintegrated, but you can still taste the treif. So therefore, it makes it asur.
How do we know they disintegrated?
Well,
It doesn't look like it. According to this, it says a slice of nevela. Slice of nevela. It doesn't say that it disintegrated.
So you can still see it.
Yeah, if you can. The problem is it's not distinguishable. That's the case. We're always dealing with a case where we have a piece, but it's not distinguishable. If it's distinguishable, what's the problem? Take it out.
Right.
The issue is that it's not.
Right. So it looks like the rest of the salami.
It says.
But in the other case, we said when it was indistinguishable. In other words, we said over there that even if it doesn't give off time, every piece is asur because that piece could be the piece.
Yeah,
of
so
asur.
Rabbi Bar Chana is more.
Not unless it
Rabbi
gives
Bar Chana
time.
is more lenient.
Here it says it doesn't give time. It's not asur unless it's polate to both the broth and the other and whatever's.
Correct, but that's the opinion of Rabbi Bar Chana.
So they're different opinions.
Of course.
They're opposed.
He is more lenient.
Yeah.
Okay, Rav Ameiru Alev Dorash. Rav stationed a speaker by his side and lectured. Once the prohibited slice imparts flavor into a permitted slice, chasicho atzmo nasas nevelo, the slice itself becomes nevela. And it then, when it is subsequently cooked with the other permitted slices, renders all of the slices prohibited, for they are of its same kind. It turned everything to be the same.
The second piece, right?
No, the first.
The forbidden
piece.
one.
First piece contaminated the second piece.
And the second piece contaminates everything.
Wipe the whole thing out.
Amar le Rav Safra le'Abaye mikdi. Rav Safra said to Abaye, let us see. Rav keman amor l'shmaite. In accordance with whom did Rav state his ruling? That the newly created nevela renders the other slices prohibited because they are of its kind. Ke Rabbi Yehuda. It's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar min b'mino le'botil. That we learned 2 days ago, where he said that min b'minoi, if it says a kind does not become nullified in its own kind. My area kinosan tam. As such, why did Rav discusses specifically a case where the prohibited slice first imparted flavor into one slice and rendered it a nevela. Afilu kiloinosan tam nami, even if the prohibited slice did not first impart flavor into one slice and render it nevela. The original slice of nevela or a non-kosher fish would render all of the permitted slices prohibited, for it itself is of their kind and its flavor does not become nullified in the mixture. Why do you have to present a case where it's transmitted to one piece and then transmitted to the other? It's min b'mino and it's not nullified regardless. Omar Abaye said to him, Achar ma'askin, what are we dealing with here? B'shekodem b'silkoi. This is a case where it was distinguishable and he picked it up and took it out. Now we have to deal with the impact of the flavor that was given out.
Before he added the other pieces.
Before adding the other permitted slices into the pot, thus if not for the rule that the prohibited slice becomes a nevela, the other slices would be permitted, even according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion that a kind does not become nullified in its own kind, since there is no prohibited matter here. An alternative explanation as to why it was pertinent for Rav to state that the prohibited slice first imparted a flavor into one slice and render it a nevela. Rava said, Afilu tema lo yikodam v'silkoi. Even if you will argue, you can even say that Rav refers to where he did not first remove the original nevela slice before adding the other permitted slices into the pot. And nevertheless, it is pertinent that the nevela slice first rendered one of the permitted slices a nevela by imparting a flavor into it, so that there be two prohibited slices, the original nevela slice and the newly created nevela slice in the mixture. Have min uminoi v'davar acher. For since there are soup and spices in the pot, there's liquid and spices in the pot, which are not of one kind with the original nevela slice, it is a mixture of a kind with its own kind. And something else. There's another thing with the soup and the spices that is not of its own kind. And any time you have a case of a kind with its own kind, but with davar acher, with another thing, with something else, solakas minoi kemisheino, remove its own kind from consideration as if it were not present. V'she'ein minoi rove olavum avatloi. And now you only have min. V'she'eino minoi. At that point you have that which is not of its own kind overwhelms the piece and it nullifies it. If after removing the like kind from consideration, the unlike element contains enough by itself to nullify the prohibited flavor in 60, the entire mixture, even the like kind, is permitted. The Gemara says, to summarize, if you look at number 4 in the notes, to summarize this discussion, in light of this principle, Rava explains Rav's ruling as follows. Rava explains Rav's ruling. Rav is indeed referring to where the original nevela slice, remained in the pot. That's originally what Rav spoke about, the case where the original nevela slice remained in the pot. However, one second. However, the total volume of liquid and spices amounts to 60 times the nevela slice. You have liquid in the pot, and you have and you have spices. You have liquid and spices. Hence, if not for the fact that the prohibited nevela slice had first been isolated with one of the permitted slices and imparts its flavor into it, the flavor of the nevela slice would have become nullified in the water and spices, and no forbidden nevela flavor would have remained in the mixture.
But now there's two pieces.
To forbid permitted slices in minute concentration. Now, however, that the nevela slice was first isolated with one of the permitted slices and imparted its flavor into it, so now you have two, rendering it nevela. When soup, spices, and other slices were subsequently added to the pot, the two nevela slices do render the other slices prohibited. For even if the volume of the other slices is 60 times the combined volume of the nevela slices, they are not nullified, for they are of the same kind. And the soup and spices, while amounting to 60 times the original nevela slice, do not amount to 60 times the volume of the two nevela slices together. Hence, the combined prohibited flavor of the two nevela slices does not become nullified in the soup and spices, and they render the other permitted slices, which are of their kind, prohibited. And that was the commentary of Rashi on this subject.
Bottom line is, you can taste it, you can't eat it.
If you can taste it, you can't eat it.
Right, if you taste the tray for the forbidden substance in the thing, even though it's batal shishi, batal may, then it's still not good. Whether it be the Gid Hanasheh, whether it be nevela, whether it be truma.
It's not such clear cut. If it was, it would be mentioned that way, but it's not so simple.
Okay.
Hafsid merubah, not hafsid merubah. There's many things that come into play.
Yeah.
There's many things that come into play. When it comes to these laws, you really have to ask a rabbi with a specific case exactly what happened. There's nothing really that we can say across the board, this is it, and that's it.
Okay.
Would it be any different if the meat touches like the sides of the pot before going into the soup? So the pot, before it gets nullified in the soup, the pot itself becomes non-kosher because it touched it, and then does that make any sense? Like if it hits the wall of the pot when you pour it in and it hits the side first, and that part doesn't get nullified, then it's like.
It depends if it was cold, not cold. The pot was cold, the pot was hot. It was wet, not wet. A lot of things that come into play. But we learned the rule of significance. It's something that is not really, it's not easily nullified. It's a piece that it's enough that you would serve it to guest, and it's in the pot. It's not easily nullified.
Would it make a difference?
Regardless of if it's imparting flavor or not.
A normal piece of meat versus lamb or liver, lamb and liver have a lot stronger taste.
Yeah, we said the difference between the chalev and Gid Hanasheh, because the chalev is bubbly, it bubbles, it gives flavor to everything. So a bigger issue if Gid Hanasheh is cooked together with the thigh, or chalev is cooked.
And the whole question about whether Gid Hanasheh has flavor at all in the first place.
Right. And what is more important, flavor or substance?
Right.
It's all taken into consideration.
But then we said sometimes the flavor is considered like the entity itself.
Yeah. The Gemara, new Mishnah, Noig b'Torah, the Gid Hanasheh prohibition applies to a kosher animal, Ve'eno Noig b'Tmeah, but it does not apply to a non-kosher animals. The Gemara will discuss obviously the reasoning of it. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af betmea, it also applies to a non-kosher animal. Rabbi Yehuda maintains, it says in number 6, that one who eats the Gid Hanasheh of a non-kosher animal receives malchus for violating the Gid Hanasheh prohibition. If you ate the Gid Hanasheh of a camel, still liable to malchus. Not on account of eating treif, eating nevela, whatever you want to call it, eating a non-kosher animal. For the Gid Hanasheh, he gets a separate beating for the Gid Hanasheh.
But it would still have to be like on the chaf, right? It would still have to be on the rounded bone, right?
If
Because we
it
said
has.
we said chicken could have.
Well, if it has.
If it has.
V'alo mipnei Yaakov nesor Gid Hanasheh. The Gemara says, but 1 second, was not the Gid Hanasheh prohibited from the era of the sons of Yaakov? V'adayin be'ema tmea muteres lon. At that time, non-kosher animals were still permitted to them. The prohibition, it says number 8, the prohibition against eating the meat of non-kosher animals was not imposed until the Torah was given at Sinai. For 2 explanations of Rabbi Yehuda's argument, see note 29. Okay, supports of the Tana Kama's opinion respond to Rabbi Yehuda. Amulai, they said to him, B'Sinai Nema, the prohibition was first stated at Sinai. Ela, shenichtav b'mekaymo, but it was written in its appropriate place in the Torah. It was written in the book of Bereshis. That's its appropriate place.
This is interesting because the Steinsaltz says the prohibition was stated in Sinai, but it was written in that place between Yaakov and the Malach, and it says, despite the fact that the prohibition did not take effect.
Right. It says these Tanoim reject Rabbi Yehuda's premise that the Gid Hanasheh was forbidden from the time of Yaakov. In their opinion, the pasuk containing the prohibition was first told to Moshe at Sinai. When non-kosher animals became forbidden, the prohibition did not apply before then, according to this Tanoim. However, when Moshe wrote, he arranged it in the Torah. He recorded the pasuk in the context of Yaakov's encounter with the angel, to teach that this incident was the reason for the prohibition. The Gemara presumes, right? It was written in Sinai, but it was placed in its appropriate place. It was written in its appropriate place. The Gemara presumes that Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, the Gid Hanasheh of non-kosher animal is subject to 2 prohibitions. It is forbidden as the meat of a non-kosher animal, and also as Gid Hanasheh. If so, Rabbi Yehuda evidently holds that a prohibition can take effect on a pre-existing prohibition. Prohibition can take effect on a pre-existing prohibition. V'sova Rabbi Yehuda isur chal al isur. And does Rabbi Yehuda hold that prohibition takes effect on a pre-existing prohibition? V'atanyo, it was taught in a Bible to the contrary. Rabbi Yehuda Imer, it could have been thought that the carcass of a non-kosher bird transmit tuma to a person and his clothing through being in his throat. Talmud leimar nevela utrefa lo yoichal atomo vo. The Torah therefore states, in regards to this form of tuma transmission, and nevela or treifa, you shall not eat to be contaminated through it. Mishi isur mishum bal teichal nevela. Yotza zeh she'ein isur mishum bal teichal nevela. By specifying nevela, the Torah limits this form of tuma transmission to a dead bird that is forbidden because of the prohibition against eating nevela. Excluded then is this bird, a non-kosher bird, which is forbidden not because of the prohibition against eating nevela. Ela mishum bal toichal tameya, but only because of the prohibition against eating the meat of non-kosher species. At the end of this, at the end of his statement, Rabbi Yehuda states that a dead non-kosher bird is not subject to the nevela prohibition. The reason is that when the bird dies, it is already forbidden as a non-kosher species, and thus cannot become subject to the additional prohibition of nevela. This contradicts Rabbi Yehuda's statement in our Mishnah, which apparently means that the prohibition of Gid Hanasheh takes effect even upon the Gid of a non-kosher animal, although it is already forbidden as non-kosher meat. The Gemara precludes a possible answer, V'chi tema kasovar ein begidin b'noisen tam. Rabbi Yehuda holds that sinews do not possess flavor. Uvat meyo nami isur gid ika isur tema leika. And thus, in the case of non-kosher animal as well, there is only the Gid Hanasheh prohibition and not the non-kosher prohibition. V'sova Rabbi Yehuda ein begidin b'noisen tam. And Rabbi Yehuda's position that sinews do not possess flavor. Vatanyo.
Also here it says that if there's no time, it's not even considered to be food.
Vatanyo, why it was taught in a brisa to the contrary? What did we learn? We learned in a brisa the one who eats the Gid Hanasheh of a non-kosher animal, Rabbi Yehuda holds him liable to two sets of lashes. One for eating non-kosher meat, and the second one for eating Gid Hanasheh. Rabbi Shimon exempts him. Here, Rabbi Yehuda deems the Gid Hanasheh of a non-kosher animal prohibited as non-kosher meat. The original problem is thus reinstated. Since the Gid is already forbidden, how can it become subject to the additional prohibition of Gid Hanasheh? The Gemara says, "La'elam kasovar yesh begidin b'noisen tam." In fact, Rabbi Yehuda holds that sinews possess flavor. V'kasovar noeg b'shlil. Yet he holds that the Gid Hanasheh prohibition applies even to a fetus. It is in force. It is in force from the moment of the fetus formation, which is also when the prohibition of non-kosher meat begins to apply. The isur gid ve'isur tuma ba'ad adodei kosi, and thus the Gid Hanasheh prohibition and the non-kosher prohibition come to the animal at the same time. Both therefore take effect together, because there is no pre-existing prohibition that would prevent the other prohibition from applying. But can you say that according to Rabbi Yehuda, the Gid Hanasheh prohibition applies to a fetus? V'atanan, we learned in a Mishnah. Noyeg b'shlil, we learned in a Mishnah, the Gid Hanasheh prohibition applies even to a fetus. Rabbi Yehuda Omer eino noyeg b'shlil v'chel b'muta. Rabbi Yehuda says, when it comes to the fetus, Gid Hanasheh doesn't apply. It does not apply to a fetus. V'chel b'muta, and its chelev is permitted. The Gemara says, those words were stated only with respect to a kosher animal. The Rachmona Omar kol ba'be'emo teichelu. The Merciful One stated in his Torah, any within an animal you may eat. The pasuk allows one to eat any, including its Gid Hanasheh. Aval b'tmei noeg, but in the case of a non-kosher animal where the preceding verse has no relevance, the Gid Hanasheh prohibition applies even to its fetus. We are therefore justified in asserting that the Gid Hanasheh prohibition and non-kosher prohibition arrive simultaneously at the moment of the fetus formation. But can you say that the both prohibition comes to the fetus at the same time? We learned in the Mishnah, For contracting Tuma from the following sources of Tuma, a Nazir must shave his head and begin his Nazirus Anu. Ala Meis, for contracting Tuma from a human corpse, Al Kazais Min Ameis, and for contracting Tuma from an olive's volume of the flesh of a corpse, Vekashilon. And we had the following difficulty with this Mishnah. Al Kazais Min Ameis Megalech. If a Nazir shaves his head for contracting Tuma from even an olive's volume of a corpse, Alameis Kula Lekol Shekain. If he has to shave his head just because of Kazais, how much more so Kazais Min Ameis, olive's volume from the dead, from the corpse, he also has to shave his head for touching the dead, not just the Kazais of the dead. The mention of a whole corpse is not needed except to include in this listing the case of an aborted fetus whose limbs were not yet bound together by sinews, to teach that it transmits Tuma as a full-sized corpse even though it does not contain an olive's volume of flesh. At any rate, it is evident from Rabbi Yochanan's statement that a fetus limbs develop before its sinews. The limbs comes first, the sinews comes after, including the Gid Hanasheh, which is a sinew. Almo isur tuma kodim. Thus, the non-kosher prohibition, which is in force from the moment the fetus forms, precedes the Gid Hanasheh prohibition, which does not apply until the sinews develop. The Gemara concedes this last point, but nonetheless argues that the Gid Hanasheh prohibition takes effect on a non-kosher animal. Af al gav d'isur tuma kodim osi isur gid choil alei sheken isur noeg b'vneneach. The Gemara says, you know what? Although the non-kosher prohibition indeed precedes the Gid Hanasheh prohibition, the Gid Hanasheh prohibition comes and take effect upon it because the prohibition of Gid Hanasheh is more stringent in that it applies even to the sons of Noach, to the sons of Yaakov. It started from that time. The Gemara cites as support for this explanation of Rabbi Yehuda's view, a precise reading of our Mishnah also yields this conclusion. For it states, Omar Rabbi Yehuda v'alom ibn Yaakov nesar Gid Hanasheh. Rabbi Yehuda said, was not the Gid Hanasheh prohibited from the era of the sons of Yaakov? V'adayin be'emot meh muter slem. And at that time, non-kosher animals were still permitted to them. How can you say that Gid Hanasheh was prohibited? The entire animal was permitted. Non-kosher animals were permitted to them before the Torah was given. The Gemara focuses on the dispute cited above between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Gufa. The text itself stated that Gid Hanasheh be'emat meh, one who eats the Gid Hanasheh of a non-kosher animal, Rabbi Yehuda mechayev shtayim. Rabbi Yehuda holds him liable to two sets of lashes, one for eating non-kosher meat and one for eating the Gid Hanasheh. Rabbi Shimon Peter, whereas Rabbi Shimon exempt him entirely, he is liable neither for eating the non-kosher animal nor for Gid Hanasheh. We have to see, or God willing, we'll see tomorrow, why Rabbi Shimon says that he's not liable for anything. He ate non-kosher meat. He'll definitely be liable for non-kosher meat, but we'll see tomorrow.
Yeah, but you can only be liable if you had two witnesses to tell you, right? If there's one witness or no witnesses to tell you eating the Gid Hanasheh, then there's...
You have to have witnesses, you have to have the witnesses warn you, and they have to warn you properly. And you have to tell them, you have to respond to them, I know that it's okay, I know I'm not allowed to, and I know the punishment, and I still want to do it.
So I don't understand, all of a sudden he mixes in with B'nai Noach with B'nai Noach that it's an issue for them also, the Gid Hanasheh.
We explained, the Gemara explained that if you have an issue, pre-existing prohibition, you shouldn't have the prohibition of Gid Hanasheh. because the pre-existing Issur was a non-kosher animal.
Okay.
So the limbs were created first.
That was for the Jew.
The limbs of take take an example, a horse, right?
Okay,
A horse in the womb of the female horse.
Okay.
What is formed first in the womb? What comes first? What is created first? So first is the limbs, then the sinews. So in that case, since the limbs were created, right? Everything else, everything is non-kosher, right? You can't eat it. That issue is existing already.
Before the Gid.
Before the Gid was formed.
True.
So if the issue was formed, there's no room for another issue.
Okay.
So we said the Gid Hanasheh is a different story. We wanted to say Gid Hanasheh has exclusive significance because it started off from Bnei Noach. That's what the Gemara wants to say. And therefore, he should be liable to two. He should be liable for eating non-kosher animal and also for the Gid Hanasheh.